What's up, world? Let me tell you about this beard growth oil I got from 12 tribes on Earth. 8 ounces of oily goodness with a nozzle that prevents sprays and spills, and soft ingredients that make it perfect addition to anyone's morning routine. From coconut to castor, all these oils are hand chosen. After using this herbal blend, the biggest thing I noticed is how soft, how strong my hair was, and how good I feel. Pick up your bottle today and make your beard the star of the show.
Shalom, family. Good to see you all. Hope you're doing well. I know it's a little later than normal for me to do my live, but I had a lot of personal things I had to take care of earlier. But here I am, and we're going to talk about the US dollar. It's a lot of people and nations that are anticipating a global shift in currency. And yes, it is happening. You got some people online denying it. Oh, no, it's still going to be powerful. No, it's not. The dollar is not even powerful now. It has lost a lot of value. And Donald Trump has not helped the situation with all those tariffs. And now that no one is purchasing things from the US like before, the dollar has gone down the drain. Now, he appointed a new Treasury Secretary, and this dude is claiming he's going to wipe out all of the US debt. I just don't know how he can magically do this because if you print more money, then doesn't your dollar lose value from that? You know, These folks are nothing but criminals. At the end of the day, that's what they are, and that's why the laws in this country are so criminal and always leaning and favoring one group of people over everybody else, and you can tell people that broke the law wrote these laws. You can clearly tell. So anyway, Donald Trump has proven he is not able to save this economy, and I don't think he's trying to anyway. I really truly believe he's trying to destroy what's left of this economy. And the people that voted for Donald Trump, this is all your fault. This is all your fault, including the downfall of the dollar. This is all your fault. It's all your fault that people are paying a lot of money for gas, a lot of money for food, which Donald Trump said was going to come down day one. It has continuously gone up and it's going to keep going up because of all that stuff going on out there in the Straits of Hormuz, and bombing has resumed with Iran hitting the UAE. And, you know, nothing is really changing as far as the prices are concerned, and people are getting frustrated. The job market is horrible. That's why we don't get the jobs report like we used to. Donald Trump has pretty much done away with that because he knows the economy looks worse under him than it did with Biden. He knows it. That's why he's hiding all this stuff. So the dollar is probably on life support at this point in time. It's not going to get better because he's not doing anything to make the situation better. But I do want to say, Donald Trump, I don't care what your dollar look like. We still want our reparations. Your dollar and your economy, that's your problem. Y'all created this problem. The people in charge, y'all created this problem. So, regardless of all of that, reparations still must be paid. So, y'all, Let me go ahead and share my screen. Yeah, please give me a 1 if you can see my screen. Thank you.
The end of US dollar dominance in the world.
There are signs that the era of dollar dominance might finally be coming to a close. Its share of reserves fell to a 25-year low last year. The rise of gold could plausibly be construed as a symptom of waning confidence in the dollar.
Its amount of global reserves is like at all-time lows. That's interesting. This isn't the kind of thing that they really talk about much here in the United States, like how poorly this is doing. So even if it doesn't change like immediately, there are some serious signs here that people are not as interested in using the dollar.
And perhaps most notably, the dollar has decoupled from American bond yields for the first time in recent history. For context, when the dollar fell in the past, US borrowing costs usually fell as well, in large part because, in the same way that the US dollar is the world's favorite currency, US bonds are the world's favorite debt instruments. This meant that when people moved out of dollars, they often moved into US bonds and thus pushed down yields, effectively moving from one reserve asset to another. That this hasn't happened in the past year or so reflects the fact that neither the dollar nor US bonds are seen as quite as safe as they once were.
So it sounds like he's saying that around the world, people are starting to get out of US dollars as the reserve, and they're not taking that money and reinvesting it into the United States. They're not buying US bonds or treasuries or whatever. They're getting out of US dollars and putting it into something else that might have nothing to do with the United States. So that's a very alarming signal.
Now, none of this suggests the dollar's demise is imminent, but it's worth noting that network effects generally act as a sort of dam. They contain and stem the original pressure, but once a critical threshold is reached and the proverbial dam breaks, things can unravel quite suddenly.
I was hoping to hear like, nah, this isn't happening. Nothing to worry about. There's definitely some signs going on here, like literally statistics and data that are showing that interest in the US dollar is going down.
There is something that nobody's talking about at the dinner table. What happens when the dollar, the one our grandparents bled for, the one we were told to save, to trust, and to build with, stops meaning what it used to mean? A dollar revaluation may be on the way. This isn't just an economic event. It is a transfer of power. And it's happened before. When a currency collapses, prices explode first, then savings disappear, then trust breaks. Who gets hit the hardest? Not the people with land, not the people with assets, the people with cash savings, the people who did everything right. Our communities were not given generational wealth. We were handed a dollar and told this is enough. But if they are about to change what the dollar is worth, this isn't about fear. It's about being the first ones to understand what's coming, because we can't afford to be the ones last to know. We don't have that luxury. So wake up, talk to your people. The reset is coming.
The US dollar is crashing. And now that I'm living here in Costa Rica, I'm really dealing with the effects of that. So when I first moved here, so with Costa Rican colones, the money for Costa Rica, it was 500 colones per $1 US. I haven't even looked up recently how much it has dropped, but I know a week ago it was down to 450 colones per $1 US, which for people in Costa Rica, that's a great thing. That means that they're able to get things at a lower cost, like something they normally would have costed them 500 colones is now 450 450 colones for them. So it's a good thing for them. But for me, since, okay, before 500 colones equaled $1, right? Well, now something, let's just say, the heck? Okay, so perspective. When I first arrived, I'm sorry, I'm trying to explain this the best way I can. When I first arrived, something that would have been 25,000 colones, that's $50 in 50 US dollars, right? So if it was 30,000 colones, that was $60. If it's 40,000 colones, that's $80. Do you get it? Okay, you get it. So now something that would have costed me 40,000 colones is now costing me $91. Instead of $80, it's now $91. That is a huge difference. It is a lot going on in this world, y'all. Like, I don't even know where to begin, but it is definitely making it harder and harder for people to live outside of the US. I will say that. But do not let that stop you. Don't let that stop you. If you still want to leave the US, do it.
I think it's going to have to be the force of the reality of what we're doing to the globe. I'm looking very closely at economic analyses that tell me by the end of June, if we're not back to reasonable shipping again, we'll be certainly in recession, global recession. And if we go to the end of August, we might be in global depression. And Putin and Trump can say over and over again that we have plenty of LNG and plenty of oil and everything. It doesn't matter. You're not going to survive in that kind of autarkic sense. Economically, you're going to crash too. So we would be looking, I think, at not only that coming to impact us, and at the same time, our incredible debt, coupled with the fact that Xi Jinping would probably accelerate the replacement of the dollar with renminbi because there'd be a moment to do it.
Yeah. So at that point, I mean, you could see chaos, right? I mean, economic,
yes.
Right. The lengths the Roosevelt administration went to keep the country stable, including authoritarian lengths. Right. I mean, that was their single-minded obsession. Like, a depression means people get restive and scary. Yep.
You're right. So, former minister and current personal coach that dedicates their time to helping people live better quality of lives, I'm fear-mongering. This is why I talk about discernment a lot, because you can use your discernment to kind of tell what somebody's agenda is. I don't have an agenda in trying to help people survive, but for those of you that do want to learn, let's take it to the board. Some of the commenters on that video assume that because the Strait of Hormuz is closed, I'm panicking about us not having oil. There's a bigger conversation to be had, and it has to do with the fact that the petrodollar system is coming to an end. That's what no one's talking about, but we're going to right now. So for the past 50 years, the world's trade has been done in US dollars, okay? The world's oil trade, this is the earth, and this is water. The whole world has been buying oil under US dollars. That's what kept our dollar strong. But that's because it used to be backed by these things. Gold. It's not backed by gold anymore. It is backed by oil. This is oil, okay? That is the petrodollar system that the world runs on. The only reason why we are a major power, okay? Are we on the same page? I sure hope so. So yes, the lack of oil is going to hurt us, but it's not just the oil that's going to hurt us. The lack of other people being able to buy oil in US dollars is hurting our US dollar, but there's more. Okay, petrodollar system. We're not done yet. Also, just last week, the UAE left OPEC, which means they can now buy their oil in Chinese yuan, rubles, or other currencies, not ours. That petrodollar system was in place for 50 years. So what this means is that the UAE is no longer forced into that agreement. They can now sell oil to China, to Russia, to whoever, in any currency. Other countries see this and now realize they can do the same thing. When oil stops being priced in US dollars, the dollar loses its power because we don't have any oil backing our dollar. The petrodollar is literally the only thing that was keeping us a global power aside from all our military bases all over the world. If you don't think other nations are going to follow suit, then you don't understand how this works. That's the real problem. I'm not trying to fearmonger. I'm trying to educate my people. And I'm so sorry that this isn't landing with you, but I wish you the best of luck.
Massive warning around the world. The share of U.S. global foreign currencies is reducing dramatically. So U.S. treasuries around the world have fallen to a record low. Now, what does this mean? And why are central banks around the world stacking gold? They're saying the quiet part out loud. The fact that they're stacking gold instead of US dollars. And they've been working to de-dollarize since 2009, when BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa came together to de-dollarize, right there on their website. And all of a sudden, Bitcoin is created. That's interesting. We've been sharing with you guys around what we believe is going to be the next stock market collapse, which is the private credit markets. The private credit markets is something that nobody's paying attention to. We're too distracted with the war narrative, and there's a systemic thing happening behind the scenes called private credit. Do you remember back in 2006 to 2008, the housing collapse that started with the subprime mortgages? Well, there's something really bubbling behind the scenes.
The $2 trillion hush money deal. So now it looks like Cuba is next, but if you think the president's plan to park the USS Abraham Lincoln 100 yards offshore of Havana is the biggest story today, you are falling for the ultimate distraction. While the world watches the Caribbean, the United Arab Emirates, a founding member of OPEC since 1967, just dropped a financial nuclear bomb. They are leaving the oil cartel effective May 1st. Hit that follow button right now because we are about to decode the secret 50-year system that just shattered and reveal why the United States is being forced to pay billions in swap lines just to keep its own allies from bankrolling a global collapse. To understand the panic in Washington, you have to look at the brutal math of the Gulf states. Just days before leaving OPEC, the UAE issued a chilling warning. They are ready to ditch the dollar and price their oil in yuan. Why? Because the Iran war has drained their dollar reserves and choked their income. The United States responded with a desperate plea. Please don't do that. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent admitted to the Senate that they are opening swap lines, essentially cheap dollar lifelines, to prevent a disorderly sale of U.S. assets. The Gulf states collectively hold over $2 trillion in American stocks and treasuries. The U.S. just admitted that if its allies were to sell those assets to save their own economies, the U.S. market would destabilize instantly. Washington isn't just offering help, they are paying a $2 trillion ransom to keep the markets alive. But why is the 50-year-old petrodollar system finally coming apart? In 1974, a secret deal was made. Saudi Arabia prices oil in dollars, buys U.S. bonds, and the U.S. provides military protection. This created a structural global demand for the dollar, but the Iran war just broke the math. The Strait of Hormuz handles 20% of the world's oil. With it closed, the economic model of the Gulf is bleeding. Before the war, Saudi Arabia needed oil at $100 to cover its spending. Now, one economist calculated they need oil at a staggering $170 a barrel just to survive. Because the paper price of oil is being suppressed by futures markets, the world's biggest oil exporters are now forced to borrow hundreds of billions of dollars. They are watching their economies shrink while the U.S., their own ally, manipulates the prices. While Washington scrambles, China is winning the endgame. On April 15th, the UAE and China signed 24 separate trade deals to push their trade over $100 billion. The UAE put a loaded gun on the table by locking in Beijing first, then calling Washington for concessions. We are shooting interceptors faster than we can produce them, and we can't replace them for 5 to 6 years. Why? Because China controls 60% of the global rare earth mining and tungsten processing needed to build them. Washington is basically printing paper money to buy missiles from a country that controls the raw materials. You cannot fight a war with paper assets when your adversary makes the actual things, but here is the terrifying secret. The U.S. military is running low on missiles. The ultimate power isn't in the White House. It's in the bond market. For weeks, the 10-year U.S. Treasury yield has become the commander-in-chief.
Yo, I think it's inevitable. The U.S. dollar is definitely going to crash. And the fact that people are pulling away from the dollar and they're looking for alternatives, or they're flocking to China. China is pretty much welcoming everybody with open arms, and they're going to China. So look, the US is just not in a very good way right now. they don't have enough ammo to fight a war. But Donald Trump is out there antagonizing a war anyway. The blockade is still up, and they sunk 6 Iranian ships. And Donald Trump has really ruined everything as commander in chief. He has ruined everything, y'all. And that's something they're not going to say in the media here. They're just going to play along because we know who owns the media. That's why you're not going to get any good information from the media in this country. So it's looking bad. It's looking really bad. And this is May, and they're saying if oil prices don't come down, probably the whole globe is going to be in a recession. I believe the whole globe is in one now. Look at how long these ships have been held up in the Straits of Hormuz. They said those ships are so backed up, it's going to take probably the rest of the year to get caught up with everything out there. And that's not a guarantee that prices are going to come down at all. So no matter how you look at it, it's a big mess. Iron Will, thank you so much for the super chat. Salute, Sister Lisa. Thank you for all that you do. And we are witnessing the fall of Babylon more and more. Shalom. And thank you so much for your support for my channel. Vance Mack, 1933. Shalom. Sis Lisa. Their God is falling, gold, oil, and dregs. Is that dregs? Okay. So anyway, thank you so much for your support for my channel. I deeply appreciate it. But y'all, Donald Trump, I don't believe he wants to save this. He wants to crash out this whole thing anyway. He's still butt sore that he lost the election. And I think this is his way of getting revenge on everyone. But little that he knows, I don't think anybody cares anymore about Donald Trump. Y'all, if you look at the last few gatherings, like, his rallies and the PGA, people are not showing up anymore for Donald Trump like they used to. They're not showing up for him, and they're not doing so well in winning the midterms. And, that's why they're trying to redraw all the districts, and so that the Republicans will have a leg up, and it's not even helping. They're still losing elections. So it is what it is. You meant drugs. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Mhm. Well, y'all, it's a lot going on, but we just got to use discernment in how we move from here on out, because we know this whole place is going to crash. These folks did not prepare for anything. They didn't. They just knew they were going to be at the top forever, and they never had to worry about anything. So just because they were stupid enough not to come up with a plan, it doesn't mean that we can't have a plan for ourselves in getting through this whole thing and being able to take care of our families and keep food on the table and do what you need to do. So just because they failed, it doesn't mean that we have to fail on a personal level. We can still keep ourselves afloat if we need to. That ballroom has been challenged so much in court. I really don't see how they're progressing. Plus, on the surface, you don't really see any change. Everything still looks all torn up. But and that's because they're working underground on that bunker that Donald Trump think he's going to be able to hide in so that he does not leave as president and he gets that third term. Because in fact, I heard them babbling about Donald Trump in a third term again last week. That was in the news briefly again. Oh, Donald Trump in a third term. That man don't need no third terms. He need to go take care of his health. Donald Trump looks awful. When you look at his face, his eyes are swollen. His hands got those giant bruises on both hands. His cankles are still swollen. He's in such bad shape. He really needs to retire and take care of his health. But we know he's robbing the place blind, and nobody's going to do anything about it because the politicians on both sides ain't shit. So they're not going to stop him. They've already proven they're too chicken to stop him. And so that's probably the big reason why he's not going to go, because he's stealing so much money for himself and his family. He don't want to leave. So he think he's going to go down in that bunker and stay down there and be able to run things from the bunker. And these delusional people will probably let him get away with that. They let him get away with everything else. Mhm. You know, they keep talking about his dementia. He probably does have it. I mean, look, he is what, practically 80 years old, and he still spends hours on Truth Social in the middle of the night and not sleeping and getting proper rest. That's why his ass is dozing off in press conferences. You can't be up all night and you're his age. Yeah, that mess gonna hang, it's gonna catch up to him. But y'all, I after all this time has gone by, it is clear that man is sundowning. That's why he's not sleeping at night. He's sundowning. He spends his time ranting on Truth Social when he should be sleeping. And, he really, well, he's not going to, but he should put his health first, but we know he's not going to do that. So, y'all, this is it for today. So, tomorrow I should be back on track, and I'll be putting out more information about the upcoming sale that I'm doing for my second year anniversary. So be on the lookout for that. I'll be putting everything in the community tab. So just be on the lookout. So, y'all, enjoy the rest of your night. Thank you so much for your support, and I will see you tomorrow. Shalom, family.